folks to understand that format. That format allows us to take questions from the audience, as well as some questions.
Many of you may not know, but Governor Paterson was born in Brooklyn. He served on the Upper West Side and in Harlem, but he's got that Brooklyn in him, that's for sure. The bottom line, first off, thank you for being here, Governor. Bottom line, we care about what the residents of Brooklyn and New York care about, is that we know we're facing unbelievable budget challenges. Unbelievable. Bottom line is, how do we get through this? How do we mitigate it? How do we make sure that those greatest in need are hurt the least? That's the bottom line. For those that are in need, to soften this, to make sure that their lives continue, and to make sure that New York State moves forward. And that's what we're here about. That's the most important reason why we're here. Governor, thank you so very, very much. Governor David Paterson.
Thank you very much, President Markowitz, who served with me in the Senate for 20 years and has given that kind of service to the borough of Brooklyn, the place that he loves, and a place that has benefited by his service. I'm also happy to see Councilwoman Letitia James is here today. Councilman Matthew Eugene is here. Councilman Charles Barron is here, and who did I leave out? Councilwoman Gonzalez is here. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. This is a difficult time in our state, and it's the reason why as I did last year, I'm going around the state holding town meetings just as this is, to give you, the public, more insight as to what is actually going on in the state, so that you may imbue us with the ability to tackle so many of these crises. In the late 19th century, a prohibitive budget deficit thrust the country of Poland into one of the worst economic meltdowns in the history of the world. It was known as the crisis of 1899. In 1929, fears and predictions that such a crisis could hit the United States were dispelled with the notion that we're not in a crisis, we're in a depression. And such was born the Great Depression. So as you see, the nomenclature of government and institutions tries to reduce the difficulty and the magnitude of economic problems. And so now, our problems are not described as a depression, but a recession. Recession is next door. When you're the one who's lost their home or their job, that's starting to feel like a depression. And the reality is that this is where New York State can move this year if we don't act, and act now. People in Brooklyn, people across this state are suffering. The mortgage foreclosure crisis is in full effect right here in New York. And over 300,000 New Yorkers have lost their jobs since the beginning of this great recession. I've been fighting for the people of the state of New York, along with my colleagues in the legislature. We passed last year and this year landmark mortgage foreclosure prevention legislation that now defines what is a legal mortgage and what is predatory lending. The latter will subject the perpetrators to criminal penalties. We have used stimulus dollars to try to create jobs in the midst of this economic crisis. We have looked past the recession to recovery and have begun job creation in clean energy, broadband, information services, and biotechnology. We have leveled the playing field for minority and women-owned businesses in just under 2 years. And we haven't forgotten about those who are hardest hit and originally hit whenever there's an economic turndown. and they are those who live on the line of survival in our society. That's why, for the first time in 20 years, we've increased the welfare grant for the afflicted individuals involved. We increased food stamps by 30%. There are $100,000 employees last year who were on food stamps this year. We increased unemployment insurance from 26 weeks to 59 weeks. We increased COBRA benefits, that's the health insurance when you leave your job, from 18 months to 36 months. We have tried as hard as we could in the midst of our economic crisis to remember those who don't have a voice but are hardest hit by it. But unfortunately, we've also made some decisions that you will raise today and which you raised right and on the merit of the issues. I'm telling you in advance, you are right. We have, in my administration, in just under 2 years, cut $4.5 billion from health care. We've cut $1.1 billion from education. We've cut our administration, our agencies, by $1.5 billion. And in this year's budget, we're going to cut it some more, unfortunately. We're going to have to cut health care another $1 billion, education a 5% reduction of $1.1 billion, and another $1 billion from our agencies, including $250 million from workforce reduction.